Tell me where this deeply rooted mission of helping female entrepreneurs comes from. What is the mission behind this?
Pain can be our biggest ally, and it can be the biggest propulsion for vision. And I was in a lot of pain when I started our business. There was just a lot of pain, financial pain, situational, like vision, inner visionary pain, where I felt like I was drowning in motherhood, but also knowing that I needed to be building something as well. I went to bed crying that night, and I cried out to God, show me $1 billion idea. Our pastor said that there's a stay-at-home mom here who he wants to give $1 billion idea to. I had a dream not too long after that. And the dream was like a business blueprint. And that was just the beginning. If I could just give women the tools they need to unlock health and wealth, then I think we could change the world.
Welcome to Unreasonable Autonomy. My name is Sarah Grace. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs and innovators who refuse to settle. Here we dive deep into raw, real conversations with boundary pushers who have pursued seemingly impossible ideas and yet have achieved unreasonable results, whether that's in their faith, relationships, health, politics, yes, even business. All of those conversations are happening right here, right now. So let's buckle up, because this isn't about playing it safe. Unreasonable ideas, unstoppable results. Let's go.
My dear listeners, you are about to unlearn everything you ever learned about wealth and wellness. I seriously cannot wait for you to hear this incredible conversation with Jaime Cross. Today's podcast guest, Jaime Cross, is a board-certified doctor of natural health and master herbalist with over a decade of experience helping women heal from the inside out through deep detoxification and whole plant skincare. She founded her company in her garage 15 years ago. What began as humble apothecary has now grown into a global botanical wellness brand that has served over 1 million people and produced more than 50 million in revenue. Jaime is passionate about equipping purpose-driven entrepreneurial women to thrive in body, soul, and leadership. She's been married for nearly 23 years, is a mother to 5 boys, and is often found with a cup of herbal tea in hand, fresh fruit on the counter, and honey from her beloved bees. This conversation may be the most important one of 2025. Let's get talking. My dear listeners, welcome back to the podcast. Okay, did you just hear that intro of who is in the room? Seriously, it actually happened, you guys. We have the incredible Jaime Cross in the room. Jaime, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Sarah.
You guys, this has honestly been, I want to say like a year in the making. I think it's been a little bit shy of a year in the making, because we are both women. We both have families. We both have marriages. We both have companies. We have all these things. And I am just absolutely determined that December 2nd, 2025 was the day in which we are meant to have this conversation. So welcome to the amazing Jaime Cross.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about this.
It's going to be great. And the reality is, some of you guys could just Google Jaime and you could find out all about her incredible company and how she got her start and all of those things. But I just want to give you guys a peek into the very first time I was introduced to Jaime Cross. It was nearly, 15 years ago, right? When I had like a brand new baby, and I had heard about this boy that lived in Boise that had a book that I should buy that was free plus shipping. And it was my first experience with a funnel. We all know what we're talking about, right? I got introduced to this boy, Russell Brunson, and I bought this book called Expert Secrets. And I read it and I thought, this is like God's gift to women on how to build a business online. That was honestly my very first thought. And we'll have to talk about that later on in this conversation. But that was the very first time that I read your name. This person named Jaime Cross, who absolutely crushed it, what felt like in a lot of ways kind of an overnight success. And I thought, I want to be this girl. So tell me a little bit about your experience getting in Expert Secrets and like what that initial success looked like. And then we'll dive a little bit into what came before that got you into the business that you're in.
Okay. Yeah. So, it was 2017 when I really started diving into funnels. And I had at that point already owned my business for 7 years. We had done farmers markets, all of these things. And we got to the point where I was like, man, it's time to just full throttle, go all in. This has to be what we're doing full time. And so I started figuring out like, where's a digital marketing mentor and who can I follow? And I had already formulated and like built products that were serving people well in the farmers markets. And so discovering Russell was literally like, I still get emotional when I think about the pivot and the shift that happened in our life, because man, I find Russell, he's like this clean marketer. He's not, doing shady stuff. And I so resonated with him and just built my funnel, which was, it wasn't like, oh, found Russell, made $1 million. It was like figuring out the offer. And for the first probably 6 to 9 months, nothing was really working. And then, I love what Russell says. You do the live videos every day for a year until you make $1 million. You just keep going at it. And I had already had that drive of like, I'm going to figure this out. And so ultimately took what he was doing, what somebody else was doing with like gun cleaning kits. And I was like, man, if he can make that kind of money and do that with gun cleaning kits, I can certainly sell soap with this whole funnel thing. And so sure enough, figured out the 5-minute perfect webinar and broke $1 million in less than 6 months from farmers markets, and then crossed 2 million, multiple 8 figures in 2 years. And so it was just like off to the races, but we had a good foundation and we had products that I knew served people well. I understood my avatar because I had spent thousands of, years and thousands of people talking to them and getting feedback and, oh, I don't like this. And that texture doesn't work for me. And I want this thing in my skincare. And so I just really was very teachable and humble and like, okay, fix it, figure it out, and then make a really, really great product. So we were ready for the web when we really blew up.
Oh, incredible. And I would imagine that there are a lot of listeners that are kind of pre your experience of having a lot of feedback, having an offer that they know serves a lot of people. And so how do you help people that maybe have been introduced to the worlds of funnels and marketing and 2 Comma Club Award and all those things, but they're looking at it and they're like, I just don't know. I don't believe in my offer. I don't believe in it. What is the next stage in the game for them?
So feedback from your clients, we've just launched again our detox program to the masses. We launched it to about 5,000 women last year. And so we relaunched, and it's taken time to really understand, what do women want? What do they need? Because you've got the chocolate covered carrot thing too, right? We oftentimes, as the entrepreneur, because we know so much about our product and how it's going to help people change their lives, but the marketing isn't there. And so we have to dangle the chocolate covered carrot, give them what they want and then transform them through what they need. And so for us, so I would say the very first thing is really understanding what people want. And that means you have to put yourself out there, usually with the wrong thing at first. When we launched our offer last year, it kind of tanked a little bit, and we sold some stuff. Oh yeah, but that's part of the growth process is, we could say the word failure, but really it's part of growing is you got to really not get it right. And it's the same thing with our physical products, It's like, I remember the very first time I tried to make this man lotion face stuff. And within a week, I had a man come back to my table at the market and he's like, this stuff stinks. I don't like it. And I was like, okay, well, what don't you like about it? And then now we've been featured in one of the largest blogs in the world for men. And we got I really dialed in. What do men want? What do they need for their beards, for their shaving, for their skin? And perfected a product that literally went viral and killed it. And so,
and now you're best friends with this guy, and he was probably over for Thanksgiving, and you're so grateful, right?
No, yeah, but that's just the process. And I think we often overlook studying, and I love what Russell teaches with modeling. And so it's like, man, there's all these companies out there that what they're doing is working. So I'm going to try to do, I remember when we first did scale and blew up, we offered more of the same thing in our upsell, and that really worked. And so learning from what Russell was teaching and then what these other e-commerce people were doing, it's like, man, why wouldn't I just do, instead of trying to get creative and offer all the things I want people to buy from me, I stuck with one core concept. We've learned from Russell about the domino, the one big idea. What's the one thing you want to transform, and use that messaging in your marketing? And then when they get down the rabbit trail with you and get really into the thick of your offers, then it's like we can start to bring up these other areas where we can serve, or other products. But ultimately, we want to, if you confuse them, you lose them. Just stick with the one simple messaging that's going to knock down that one big domino, and then keep perfecting.
Okay, you've got my little marketer heart that's starting to beat the normal, because I work in the world of women, right? I'm a master at female buying psychology, right? That is my whole entire world, is what makes women buy and engage. And I know that you and I are super aligned on that. That's why we were introduced by the amazing Mandy Keene, that we really believe that this is a season of women. Right? Mm-hmm. This is a woman's time. And you can look at that in astronomy. You can look at that in a million ways, that this is a woman's season. Something that I noticed specifically with female entrepreneurs is that they take their business and their mission so personally. Yes. And I have observed that as both a blessing and a curse. And so, in fact, when I polled some of my people saying that you were coming in to prepare for this interview, one of those listeners named Amanda had a question specifically about this, because she said, I get why Jaime has been so successful, because if someone tells you that your product or your soap isn't great, you can kind of brush that off, right? And you can say, well, I can just make it better, and it doesn't feel personal to me. But here she's here helping people build marriages and families based upon the Bible, right? Mm-hmm. And when someone is critical of her product or her offer, she takes it incredibly personally. And so when feedback comes in, she tanks and she dives. Have you witnessed this as you have worked with female entrepreneurs? And how can we as women better understand our ability to handle failure?
Oh, yes. And so a couple of things. One is you want to have, if you are the product, you've got to have a buffer. So you have to have, whether it's your executive assistant, or there was a season where it was my husband. Now, I was in the very beginning, your physical product, I'm responding to emails, I'm getting all the inquiries. And you're right, it's a lot easier to make tweaks to a soap bar or a lotion bar than it is when you are the product. So I went through 4 years in our business where we actually shifted our business model into more of a social selling, where we launched we had 3,000 women who all had different opinions about my product, about me as a founder. There was a ton of criticism, and I learned to stay behind the buffer. So my team we actually did a whole training around what kind of feedback I needed to help improve brand, to keep growing, but to protect the vision. And so when you are the visionary in the product, it can be very detrimental to be constantly getting the input that might be negative, especially if it's toxic input. I mean, the internet is a crazy toxic world, and you've got big influencers out there right now who are trying to get off of social media because they're burnt out, or they've been so affected by the criticism. But you got to have a buffer, and you've got to keep in perspective what it is that you're really doing. And it helps you understand who you should be serving and who you should not. So I actually pivoted away from a specific type of avatar because they were so toxic in general. And so,
really?
Oh, absolutely. And so I think quitting is something that we've been taught not to do, but you've got to quit a certain type of person, and you've got to quit certain things in your business if it's holding you back. And so we've got to get really comfortable with saying, you know what, I'm not going to listen to this kind of stuff. I'm going to keep a buffer there. And you don't have to be the one in the thick. And if somebody's toxic, I cut those people loose now. Like they don't survive in my culture as a brand, as in our company corporately. And if we have toxic consumers or customers that are difficult to work with, we let them go. I just don't tolerate it anymore. I'm 45 years old now. We don't have to put up with that stuff. And so it really let that help you identify who your who's are and who your who's are not.
Oh, okay. We've got like the gold plated quote, right? Already from you just a few minutes into the interview. So you believe in quitting, right? You believe in quitting. And something that I think you really tied in is there are different types of quitting. It's not that you're going to tell this dear listener, quit asking for feedback.
No.
Okay.
Right.
You're gonna say quit being the person that has to hear all the feedback all the time, right? And so just being a steward that way. Go ahead.
Yes. And so I always I tell our team, and we want data, not drama. So give me all the data. Give me what you don't like about the texture. Tell me what you don't like about the product or the way that we're delivering the information. You know, we've got this detox program now, all of these things, but don't give me the hatred and the anger and the manipulation and the entitlement. If that is present, then we just have learned how to communicate very gently and kindly with those people. And then we, you know, if they can't work with us on our terms, then we don't work with those people.
Incredible. And you probably have had to really kind of systematize an SOP, that kind of process, because you do so much social selling, that you have very dynamic, intense personalities, money's on the line, visibility's on the line. And so you've really had to structure that in a way that feels more predictable and approachable for you on a day-to-day basis. Is that correct?
Well, last August, we actually shifted away from that model because we could not shift the culture of the social seller or the social selling model. So we went back into e-commerce and omnichannel, which means I have freedom to serve everyone, and I'm not pigeonholed into one particular model. But it was 4 years of a lot of heartache.
Yeah. There's you put a period at the end, right?
Yeah.
Just a lot of heartache. So I love so much what you've talked about like the current business, the current model, the model that you quit. We're going to use that word with total endearment during this conversation today. You quit that model. You're now in the e-com kind of model. And I want to back up a little bit about when you talked about, I knew that there was a time in which I had to go full throttle and figure this business out. Set the stage for us a little bit about what work was dividing your attention. What was the world you were in before you went into the direct response and marketing world? What were you doing then that created that desire for a pivot? And I'm going to go full throttle and finally figure this out.
Yeah, we were doing farmers markets, and we had little shops all over Colorado, and there were some shops all over the US that were carrying our products. So we were doing wholesale retail. And then I was in a position after 4 years of doing farmers markets and, again, talking to so many people, getting so much feedback, perfecting, that it was like, man, it's time to go to the next level. And we were in a position for the first 7 years where every penny we made was going back into shea butter and lavender essential oil and into
7 years.
And then you pay taxes, Pardon?
You said 7 years?
7 years of just, being like, when are we going to be the family that can actually buy a car that we're not going to wonder if it's going to start, being the family that can go on a vacation or buy a newer home, or, we were the family who was always making the sacrifices for years. But Nathan and I, when we first got into being business owners, we did it together, started in our garage, and we came into an agreement that we as a family, and this was, at the time we had 2 little babies, and now we've got, he's 17, so he's grown up. We decided right away together, we got into alignment that we were going to be an entrepreneurial family, and that entrepreneurship was the way to the success that we wanted, to the kind of freedom and lifestyle we wanted. And so when hard times came or when sacrifices had to be made, we went back to our original decision. Is we decided we made the choice to be entrepreneurs, which meant we were going to be making sacrifices and not doing things that like everyone else was doing. And the thing that's so clear when you look at success is that the time will come. The vision is for an appointed time, but we can't get discouraged. We have to keep going. And if we don't give up, we will reap a harvest. And that harvest, when you've built a solid foundation, the roots go deeper, the skyscraper is so much taller. So, to go from, and I have a video of this, actually, we were driving an old minivan forever. And it was 2 years after we had made millions that we decided at 300,000 miles on our little minivan that we were going to buy a vehicle, a new one for the first time ever.
Oh, bless you.
So those payoffs, and we were able to buy our house that we had been renting and, go on a vacation. And Nathan and I source ingredients from all over the world in our skincare. So we actually went to Italy to where our olive oil is from and went to all these beautiful places. And it was, man, it's so sweet when you sacrifice and sacrifice and sacrifice and you endure. And then finally, it's like that moment comes and it's so sweet,
And you kind of look to the left and you look to the right and you're like, is this real? Like, did this actually happen? Because seven years is not a short time frame in a marriage, in raising kids, in littles, in a minivan that you're praying will start every morning. Like, that is not a short time frame. And one of the phrases that you brought up is that success comes in an appointed time. Do you believe that there are behaviors, actions, beliefs that can speed up that appointed time or slow down that appointed time?
Yeah, I think we can be our own worst enemy. And, as a faith-driven person, I can look in old Proverbs and just look at the way that God works. And he wants success for us. He doesn't want us to be broke. He doesn't want us to be tired and sick and poor. He wants us to prosper as our souls prosper. So if we can surrender to the process quicker, learn faster, I think that's where mentorship really comes in. That's where association comes in, listening to podcasts like yours, Sarah, getting around women and people who are doing bigger things than you are and protecting your association. Those things expedite. And then, we were working really hard, but I don't even think the internet was ready for us. When I started, Instagram had just started. I started 15 years ago when...
Those were the good days. I swear.
I know. When we blew up, we were paying $5 to acquire a new customer. And I think we're over $100 now in our acquisition.
Really? Oh, gosh. Well, time changes.
I think you can absolutely grow faster, learn differently. It's the whole who, not how, but and I think we are the biggest gateway to our own success. Life is self-determining. If you've ever read the book, A Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes. Yeah, Viktor Frankl, right? Viktor Frankl. And I hope my listeners are catching the gold nuggets that are being dropped here, because you just listed 5 things that people can do to speed up their appointed time of success, right? I don't know if you do that, but you did.
Oh,
and you said gathering, like be with women or be with that group or whatever. You said mentorship, you said association, and then maybe I wrote the 4th one twice, but you said be with people that are doing bigger things than you.
Yeah. And humbling yourself in the process, not being offended ever. Don't ever let the process get in your soul. Let it be something that, and this sounds so cliche, it's the whole joy and journey thing. I look back and I have regrets. And I think maybe it's just part of growing up in entrepreneurship. It's part of growing up. We think we're adults at 30, but I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, man, I feel like I know way less now at 45 than I ever did when I was 30. But we have to, I look back on the times that I was stressed and I don't even use the word stress anymore. I don't use the word I'm confused. I never say those things anymore because I'm like, it always works itself out and everything is figured out. But if you let the process really temper you quickly, then you can grow faster, So humility is such a big part of growth, I think.
And you do. I just sense that sitting with you. Before we pushed record, I promised Jamie, I said, when I get my podcast studio rebuilt, I'm going to fly you in because I want to like feel what it feels like to be with someone who has been forged, right? Mm-hmm. Forged through the experience, forged through fire. That's what I sense just sitting across from you is this is someone who is steady and forged and is very dedicated to her mission, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So if we could pivot a little bit into the her effect, okay? Mm-hmm. Her all in caps, people, okay? You'll see it in the show notes. We'll make sure that we do it properly. Tell me where this deeply rooted mission of helping female entrepreneurs comes from? What is the mission behind this?
Yeah, thank you. I love that question. And even as you're saying it, I'm like getting a little misty-eyed here.
I've got goosebumps, people, on film. Here we go.
Pain can be our biggest ally, and it can be the biggest propulsion for vision. And I was in a lot of pain when I started our business. And I don't mean physical pain. I mean, although I was struggling with thyroid issues, I was struggling with autoimmune and chronic fatigue. And there were a lot of things. And like even motherhood was a very interesting journey. We have 5 biological boys that we had adopted. We have a 6th son who's now in his 20s, but we were really trying to figure out how to raise this young baby, adopted baby who had been through so much. And so there was just a lot of pain, financial pain, situational, like inner visionary pain, where I felt like I was drowning in motherhood, but loving the process there, but also knowing that I needed to be building something as well. And I think that's a big part that women really struggle with. Is it okay for me to be a stay-at-home mom? Or, I've homeschooled my children for now 17, their entire lives, and we've built a multi-million-dollar business. Well, how do you do that well? So
how do you do that well?
Yeah, I remember my husband was teaching and coaching. I tell this story all the time. I've told it so many times, but it never gets old when I hear it from myself. I just remember the pain we were in. He brought home this gift card for $25 from an ice cream shop. This was back in 2010. And he had been coaching and working 6-7 days a week sometimes because coaching season was crazy, And he said, I need to go down to the local ice cream shop and try to sell this gift card for half of what it's worth so we can have some gas money. And Nathan's an extreme introvert, very quiet, gentle man. He does not go to ice cream shops and try to sell things, let alone like basically trying to figure out like, hey. So anyways, we were desperate for $12.50 at the time. And he came home and nobody would purchase it. So he came home with no takers. And that was a week where I'm at the utility company, sitting around people who have no teeth, who are not people who are taking care of their lives. They're in extreme poverty. And I'm like, this is not my life. This is not what we signed up for. Like, there's got to be something. And I feel too that women hold the key to financial breakthrough if they would only step into that economic driver, into that pull that you have. I think a lot of women just aren't giving themselves permission. And so I went to bed crying that night and I cried out to God and I said, God, show me $1 billion idea so that I can change the world and leave a legacy for my family. And I had been building my faith for like biblical wealth. And so I had already the fact that billion came out of my mouth, I was ready for it. And so long story short, went to church. Our pastor in the middle of his message stops his sermon and says, hey, this has never happened to me before, but the Lord just spoke to my heart and said that there's a stay-at-home mom here who he wants to give $1 billion idea to, so get ready for it. And I was like, no. Lord, with me, whatever you tell me to do, I'll do it. Whatever you give me, I'll be faithful with it. And so I had a dream not too long after that. And the dream was like a business blueprint. I mean, I woke up from that dream and I started formulating that day, learning biblical chemistry. I'd come from a banking background, so I was in finance, had my securities license, I was doing investment banking stuff. And here I am, like 3:00 in the morning, nursing Seth and studying herbology and herbalism, and which was a passion of mine as a young teenager. I would told my friends I was going to be an herbologist, and I'd forgotten that part of my identity. So a year later, launched our product and just hit the streets with my stilettos and my new little soaps, and was slinging soaps on the streets in Denver and Colorado Springs, walking into shops, talking to owners and buyers at $2 wholesale for our soaps, and that was just the beginning. And so when 2015 came, so 5 years into entrepreneurship, I desperately wanted to help women unlock what had been unlocked in me, which was the beginning of my healing journey. I'd started healing naturally, the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. Like, if I could just give women the tools they need to unlock health and wealth, then I think we could change the world, because I really think that what you said in the beginning, we are at the cusp of the greatest awakening the world has ever seen. And I think it's coming from entrepreneurial women.
I do too.
So much of it is from the home. I've got friends who knit or selling bread. These micro bakeries are starting to like blow up. Go make an extra $5,000 a month from home, and you don't have to struggle. And I think women hold the key. So if I can help them discover that and equip them in that, then I'm doing what I'm called to do.
And you guys, we never pitch anything on the podcast until today. So like go to the link and find, like if your heart's racing like mine is, you will, if there's not a link there, you DM me and I'll get you all hooked up, right? But something I want to bring up is this nervousness that women feel, particularly those who feel very called and devoted to motherhood. I've got 4 kids, right? One of them is homesick today, like literally 15 feet away as we are interviewing, right? Which is okay. But I have felt, and it sounds like you have felt, this common fear of kind of damned if I do and damned if I don't. Like if all I do is motherhood, I'm going to lose myself and I'm going to be a martyr and my kids are going to witness that and all whatever. If I do the other and I build this business, all my kids are going to be ruined because mom recorded a podcast when I was home from school sick and they're all going to end up in jail, right? And I know that's very like black and white thinking, but it's a very real pull that men don't typically experience. And so where have you come to peace with that as you have built the Her Effect and gone after these particular women that feel that tear?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so multi-layered. It's having a lot of conversations. Well, it started with me and Nathan. We're like, okay, we're going to be entrepreneurs. And then the boys have grown up being a part of the business. And I think that's another thing in our culture. It's like, okay, I'm the business owner. You're the child. You need to be over here while I do my thing. But I think this is where training your children is so important and bringing them into the fold. And my boys know that they can come in. I could be in a podcast interview and they know that they can come in at any moment, sit quietly and no interruptions, and then when they know that I'm done, then they can ask me their questions. But all my boys right now, my 3 older boys are in the shop making product and shipping product with my husband, and we had a team for that and we've just made a lot of changes. And so but they know that they're part of it. And I remember I recorded an episode years and years ago, like 6 years ago, about build something so powerful your children want to join you. And I think it's a perspective shift. But I do think the day-to-day is it is a challenge, because I not only have teenagers who are driving and ready to leave home in a year, I also have a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I'm still the nurturer. The older boys get so much now from Nathan. I think there's kind of a passing off roles when the boys get older, especially having only boys. I don't know what it's like to have a girl, but the little ones want to sit in my lap and they need me to tell them stories. And so we have to be very planned and scheduled. And I wake up very early to make sure I can start getting things done. And I stay up late when everybody's in bed. And so you just got to figure out what that rhythm is. But also I think communication helps. Like I just had a long conversation with my 17-year-old last night about, what we're doing and where we're going and you're part of this, and just giving them a place, I think is really key. And having an understanding spouse is really important, because if Nathan and I were fighting, if we were like this about, well, Nathan's not like I'm working and you're not working. It's like we're both working. We just have different roles to play. And we've let go of the gender like role thing in the marriage. It's like we know that if mama doesn't go out there and do video, and if she's not doing the marketing, then we don't have a business. And then Papa has to go back to work and at a school and work 6 days a week and make $20,000 a year.
Right. That you've shown them those are the alternative paths.
Yeah, the trade-offs.
Live this way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no solutions. There's only trade-offs. So that's the question. Would you rather struggle financially and not have resources, and that's going to be a struggle in your life and in your marriage and in your parenting? Or would you rather struggle with the weight and the responsibility of entrepreneurship, but then have all these options? And we chose entrepreneurship. And so we just figure it out.
Oh, I'm so moved by this. And I'm so moved by your specifics on kind of what the day-to-day looks like, and that there are trade-offs, right? You are not solving everything. You are trading things for things, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you have more thoughts on that?
Oh yeah. I mean, just as you're saying it, I'm like, man, there are moments when I'm like, I have to put you down. Asher, my 9-year-old, you're going to read Noble's story for the next half hour because I have to get this thing done. And it's like that pull, that's where you feel that ache. And then it's easy to look back and be like, did I do enough? Did I do mothering well? But I think, and then you go through bumpy things. I mean, teenage boys, they want to fly the nest. They want to have their own minds. They want to do their own thing. They want to, test their boundaries and I think every family is different, but it's like, man, I hope we've done this well. And I know that I can say that I've done all I can to know that I've given my whole heart to the process,
I love this. I'm going to ask you a really blunt question. Are you a good mom?
Oh my gosh. You're going to make me cry with that one. I think yes, I am, even though it doesn't look perfect all the time, but yeah. For sure.
Can you go even further with that? How do you know that you are a good mom?
Because I love my children to the depths, and I'm willing to have those hard conversations. I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. I've apologized many times and said, I'm sorry, I raised my voice and that's not okay. And I'm sorry I got impatient in the situation. And this is how we do family, is where we open our hearts and we talk about hard things. And I think just never being too proud to recognize when it's like, you know what? I know we haven't spent a lot of time together over the last 24 hours or, whatever this thing that I missed the boat on. They don't give you manuals when you raise children. I mean, I have the Bible, and I think that's a really great starting point. But the day-to-day of figuring things out, like you make a lot of mistakes and you learn to just keep going and love your children and correct them and be correctable and train and discipline, all those things,
I'm going to push you even further. What happens in a family when a mom deep down in her soul knows she's a good mom?
Man, I think if you actually take the time to tell yourself that and embrace that, the stress of, am I doing this right? Or the stress of, is it okay if I'm doing this over here when you go on a vacation or you go do the podcast episode and all of a sudden it's like, no, everything's going to be okay. That's such a beautiful question. You're a good interviewer. You're really good at this.
Can we just do this all the time? All the time. If I could pick one thing in my business, it would be this. I am just having this flashback to your pastor, that little did he know that he was actually building you with that $1 billion statement. Like, I hope he knows, right? Like, look what you've done, right?
Yeah.
What he did in that moment. I have such a deep appreciation for your willingness to unlock women. What do you think some of the adversary, or if you believe in a devil or or Satan or whatever you would call that spirit, what do you think some of his biggest tactics are against women right now?
Oh, I love that question. So I've had these conversations with women and with my children. It's the voice in your head that you think is your own, but it's really the adversary, where you're like, I'm not this, or I'm not doing this enough. Or even, like if you've ever played the tape in your head of like, you've got a gripe against your spouse. I think he's in there like the foxes robbing the hen house. Like he's in there planting those seeds, and the adversary is convincing you that you're the one unhappy when really he's the one trying to mess everything up. There's a great passage that talks about how we don't wrestle with people and physical things. We wrestle more internally. And if we can just understand that there is an adversary that's out to get your wealth, he's out to get your health, your marriage, your family, that you and your spouse are on the same team, that you and your family are for each other. But I think that's the first one, is like thinking that you're the one unhappy when really he's the one sabotaging.
Wow. Keep going.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And secondarily, he's a deceiver, and he's an accuser of the brethren is what the Bible actually says. So he's in there. He's constantly. Yeah. Like he's accusing you. So when women feel shame and guilt, it's not from you. It's from this from this adversary that wants to take you out. And if you could only recognize how threatened he is by you, just like your question about if you could really embrace knowing how much that you're a good mom, if you could embrace that you are a woman with purpose, designed for something great, nothing, even the smallest things in the earth are created for a purpose. How, as people, as human, as women, with this ability to give life and birth and build and have discernment and wisdom, like that, we don't have some great purpose in the earth. Women have lost their way. And I think it's because we've believed a lie. And I think the lie comes so much from the enemy.
Oh, my word. And I don't think anyone would fight me as a listener by saying that the world feels intense right now. You can talk politically, you can talk economically, you can talk internationally, just open any news browser, right? That the world feels chaotic. And so for a woman that knows she's a good mom, for a woman that is building her faith, for a woman that is trying every morning to remind herself who she really is and get the hint, Satan, right?
Yeah.
Out of my own mind. What is her role in bringing light to the world with the state that it's in?
So action cures fear and action creates confidence. And I think we have standing, I hate to use the word ducks, whatever, people who are just standing and they're waiting and they're hoping, waiting till the kids get older, waiting till the kids go off to school, waiting until the vision becomes more clear, waiting until they have more money to do the thing. But today, before you make a point, and I think that if I've done anything well, it's imperfect, messy action. When we relaunched this whole detox, I told my team, I'm like, done is better than perfect. And now we're learning so much because we did it and it didn't work quite the way we thought it would, but that's just part of the process. And in everything, whatever it is that spark, whatever it is that the vision or the thing that you're supposed to be doing, but you've just been waiting, it's time to put that stake in the ground and get after it. And I think if women would just get into the action that they're called to be in, that would change the world. That would change so much.
It would change so much. And I love the vision I actually had when you said, put your stake in the ground. I thought that stake starts right here in the four walls of my home.
Yes. It's the Mother Teresa quote. If you want to change the world, go home and love your family. But you're doing it. I think there are media companies waiting to be born. There's art waiting to be created. There's business. I mean, there's so much. And look at what can happen if you just, play out that vision to the nth degree. What if I actually started doing the thing that I've been waiting? Or what if I actually started taking action? Man, what's possible? And why not you?
Why not you, right? Why not you? And it's again that shining a light on what that adversary has been saying. Of course it wouldn't be you. You're too shy, or you live in a small town, or you grew up this way, or you have trauma, or you messed up with that one client, right?
Yes. Well, and it's the foolish things of the world that confound the wise. That's another scripture that I love, because I can tell you that, especially when you look at success, I've studied, I'm sure you have too, Sarah, I've studied the greatest, most successful, and they're all the people who didn't fit into the box of society and into culture. Right. Most of them didn't, either finish school or they did this thing that just would rock the boat. And I was homeschooled most of my life. And then when I actually went to school, I was so bored. I was like a failure in high school. I had 3 Fs and I got kicked out of acting class and, because I was failing my grades. And my teacher was like, I failed speech class, which I'm like, now I spend my life, and I failed chemistry, which is like my life now is speaking, and botanical chemistry, and I think that in the beginning of my journey, those were things that I started outsourcing very, very early. I need to hire the person who knows how to do the thing. And now I could say I could do that because I understand my business and I understand what delegation is. But in the beginning, those things where you're like, man, I can't possibly, an example of this is when we first started formulating, I was like, I need to buy a soap base, like a formula that's already finished because I can't possibly work with sodium hydroxide and figure this out well enough to do it on my own. And so I bought supplies from this person and then I ended up being like, know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure out, I'm going to do it better. And I did. So there's been these things along the journey that's like, oh, you're not good at that, or you can't do that. Now let's find the expert. And now I'm realizing like I'm capable of anything I put my mind to. And it's not because I'm special. I'm just willing and humble enough to be like, I might not do it the best, but now we've got an amazing team, and I realize where our business needs to hire and all the things. But
for all those, a season for all those stages. And as you're sitting there talking, I'm sitting there just lapping it up, because that's what I would want for a child of mine.
Yeah.
I can put my mind to, and I can whatever. And yet somehow we enter into motherhood and we're like, has to be perfect. And like somehow I love how you said women have lost themselves. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, but wait, what if we actually became like little children, like Jesus said, right?
Yes.
And we tried and we created and we failed and we did all those things. What would happen in the world if we embrace that?
Well, and I think for women to surround each other, truly, we say it, and I mean, I've heard it in all the cliche, and some of the experiences I've had in businesses, like, man, there's a lot of really gnarly, hurt women out there who just they're not supportive, and they're the dream stealers. And man, we have to heal and, I don't know, become the women that are like praying for you behind your back type of thing, and building each other up behind your back type of thing, where women need each other, I believe, and be the kind of woman. And that was another thing too. And in the question you asked about why I started the Her Effect was, man, I longed for mentorship and I lacked it. And I found a lot of women who wanted to have input into my life. And I just realized there's just so few pure hearts. And I wanted to be the mentor that I needed, Wow.
You're like, I can do anything I put my mind to. And so I'm going to be that mentor. And I just wrote down, it's going to end up on my wall. I'm going to be the type of woman that prays behind your back.
Prays for you behind your back. Yes.
I love that. Praise for you behind your back. That is the woman I want to be.
Yes. Okay. That's not my quote. I can't take credit. I've seen it out there, but I feel that way too. Like that gripped me when I saw it for the first time.
I don't care if it's Chat GPT. It like hit my soul. I'm like, that's truth there, right? That's truth right there of who I want to be. I'm praying for you behind your back. I love this. So I want to dive into something that you just brought up when you were talking about that there are dream stealers. There are catty women out there that exist. We're not going to give the energy to that.
Right.
This interview. One thing that I love about your mission is you are all about healing from the inside out, right? Mm-hmm. And about this detox thing that everybody listening is clearly going to join, because we don't sell things here on the podcast, but everybody's going to click on it anyway. But you've got this detox thing, and something that you said actually when you filled out your form is you believe that that wellness precedes wealth. And I read that and I was like, oh my gosh, do I disagree with Jaime Cross about something? What? Because here's what I've witnessed, and I want you to prove me wrong. Okay? Prove me wrong. I'm ready for it.
Okay.
What I have witnessed, and these are largely male marketers, so apologies, but that's what I've witnessed. That's who I've been raised by in a lot of ways. I would watch them grind and work the 100-hour weeks and put in all the effort over years. And there simply was not capacity, resources, time, or attention for their health, right? Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden they build the big stages and they do the big events and they do all the things and they become the big kahuna, whatever you want to call them, up on the stage. And that is when they start to recognize it's time for them to pay attention to their wellness. And so then they start doing float therapy and they do I don't know. I'm like making up all this stuff, but that's when they start to pay attention to their wellness is after they have had the financial success and built the things. And so that I literally could not think of an example of someone that was like, I am going to take care of my body and I am going to heal. And then all of a sudden the money came. And so talk to me about actual truth, because I actually believe you, because I trust you and I resonate with you. And so I'm ready to relearn. Why does wellness precede wealth?
Oh, I love your heart in all of this. This is so fun. Good job.
I'd love to be here. I'm thrilled to hear. Teach me.
Well, the question first is, what is wealth? Right? I mean, we could have money in the bank and we've been there, but I believe that true wealth. So maybe, I mean, you've got the elevator pitch there with what the very quote you said, that wellness precedes wealth, but it's true wellness precedes true wealth. And so when we have, and we can also look at so many people who grew fast and they either ended up sick in their physical bodies or they weren't able to hold on to the wealth. They lost it because the soul capacity wasn't there. And so one of the things that I've been in multiple health healing journeys. I've had a couple health scares. And so it has caused me to really go deep, not only with clients, but in my own life and in my family of just what does healing really mean? And we can't address the physical body and neglect the spirit and the soul. And so something happens when you start, there's a supernatural shift that happens in your visionary, in your soul and in your spirit when you start eating clean. And I can't tell you, like, the shift in me as a woman in the last year, going into the deepest, darkest parts of as I've gone through detox, I'm like, I'm going to detox every part of my soul and my spirit. If I'm hanging on to unforgiveness and, anything that's going to hold me back from who I'm called to be, those things are getting detoxed. I'm letting go of those things. I'm surrendering to a healing process, body, spirit, soul. And so then what happens is you have more energy, you have more joy. There's an awakening that happens in your inner man that can't be replaced, that you can't read about in a book. And I think it's something that God designed for us. I have a friend who's a bodybuilder and he's a fruitarian, and he talks about how he used to be an addict. And the closest thing he can get to that high is eating fruit. And so there's a spiritual connection to the earth that we have. And I don't think it can even be really truly explained, but when you start to experience it, the goodness and the wholeness of pure health, where you don't feel tired, you don't feel achy in your body, where your body is so alive that you literally could reach the heavens with joy and peace and excitement. And I think that's how God designed. He didn't make us to be just eat healthy food and feel better. It's like, no, there's a whole transformation that happens when you start to detox. And then what happens is you have eyes to see the areas, because I've gained wealth and lost it. And so but the true wealth that I'm gaining now, like money in the bank and attracting wealth and attracting good people in my life, those things were happening on smaller levels. But as I've continued to grow and cleanse and expand, there's just this supernatural thing that shifts. And I used to think it was like woo-woo, but now I've really experienced it. I'm like, man, let's get every woman, let's get her body. And I'm telling you, here's what's really crazy. So when I'm a board certified doctor of natural health. And so going through school, we learned about parasites. We learned about Lyme disease. We learned about pathogens and viruses. And these things they're almost like sentient. They're almost like, I remember coming home from one of the lectures and being like, Nathan, these things sound like they're actually like spiritual parasites. Like they have a mind and they go into your body and they invade and they dismantle your immune system. And so I've seen and this is going to be like TMI, but it sounds to me like that's what you want. I've had 3 foot long parasites exit my body. Multiple 8-inch, 12-inch parasites exit my body. I've had things coming out of my skin. I mean, I've traveled all over the world and I've been to Africa and I've had Giardia, and there's things that have been lurking in my body, feeding on me for probably since I was a child growing up on a farm with chickens. And so we have this stuff that's lurking in our physical body, and we call it symptoms, and we call it this disease and that disease. But ultimately, when we start getting those things out, it makes room for life in our cells and our soul and our vision and everything. And so, man, to go through a real true healing process, it's hard too. I mean, like, I cried so many tears. There's like this unleashing of emotion and burden that just gets released from your body when you're detoxifying. And so I think true is probably the missing word in that. True health precedes true wealth. It's a body experience. Yeah.
And that would make so much more sense, especially when you brought in the idea of what we've actually witnessed in the business world is those who achieve worldly wealth but can't hold on to it.
Yes, that's a real...
Yeah, there's an urgency there that they, in order to sustain, they must focus. And so it feels a little bit out of order of maybe a more true way. And something that's interesting. So I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ. I'm a Mormon.
Oh,
and in many of our temples, there are spiral staircases, right? And everything within our temples is very symbolic, layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, right? In how we learn and how we connect with God. And my perception of those spiral staircases is so much of what you just said, that there are steps and steps and steps to healing, but it doesn't go this way.
No.
It's ascension.
Yeah.
Right? There's an ascension. And there are certain floors of our temples that are considered, we wouldn't use the word supernatural specifically in our faith, but that are this ascension into the presence of God, right? Yes. And so as you climb these stairs, you are better accessing. And when you were sitting there talking about your body feels alive, and it feels, I'm like, the places I have felt that have been on the top floors of the temple. Right? It's just such like a resonant moment for me. And so for our dear listeners who believe in this true wealth idea, but are confused by a first step towards true wellness, because we have therapy. My husband is an anesthesiologist, right? So I'm very much in the Western medicine world, right? So there are things like Ozempic, they're out there right now. There are things like, you should be a vegetarian, or you should be vegan, or you should eat whole foods, or like so much noise, Jamie, so much noise, right? And so set us straight as a trusted, I consider you now a trusted mentor, because now I know about the 3-foot things and all those things. Like, what is a first step specifically for women towards true wellness? Where do we start?
Okay. Just eat real food.
Really?
Yes, that's the very first place I start everybody. We eliminate the dirty 3. So processed food. Imagine you're in a grocery store. So this is kind of the think about the food as an industry. Like, food industry is an industry. You've got marketing, and you've got the fitness world, and you've got, eat the Cheerios. And I mean, what a great business model to be in, because we're never going to stop eating food. It's like death and taxes. There's always, so imagine you're walking down an aisle, and you've got all these non-GMO crackers and organic crackers. And we think that's healthy, right? Because we're like, oh, it's non-GMO, it's organic. But those terms, so terminology, that's another thing, like getting to the bottom and the root of what do words mean. So those are indicating things that are not in your food. So maybe GMOs doesn't have genetically modified organisms, or it's not a genetically modified organism. Organic might be free from pesticides and herbicides, right? Whereas what we really want to be looking at is your food alive. Is there food in your food? And if you can't go outside and plant it in your backyard, then it's dead. And so the body operates. So true energy can be measured in the body. And I don't mean calories, I mean angstroms unit. And so every food has a certain amount of energetic unit of energy. So if we're eating dead food all the time, our body is built to do 2 things. It's built to heal itself and cleanse itself. It's a self-cleansing organism. It's a self healing. And if we remove obstruction, all disease begins in the bowel, and all disease begins with obstruction. And so think about that in any part of your life. You know, if you have obstruction or a blockage in your marriage starts to die off, right? Or blockage in communication in your business, anywhere. We always want a constant flow, and your blood is the river of life in your body. So when we have obstruction, you got me on my little soapbox here. If you cleanse the blood, you heal the body. And so with obstruction comes an overdose or a dumping of acids and toxins. We call this acidosis or toxemia, where your blood just builds up. And so what does your body do to protect itself? It starts developing tumors to hold all these toxins, or cancers like pockets. And so that's why, you know, if you've ever seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, she's like, biopsy. I had a biopsy. Yes. You have these biopsies, you know, and you're piercing what the body created to protect you. And so this is the very first thing I do is I talk about pH and alkalinity. Your blood has to stay in a very specific alkaline state. And so it will pull minerals and nutrients from the bones and from the tissues of the body to stay alkaline. So what we want to do is open up the elimination pathways, which is your bowels, your urinary tract, your lymphatic system, your lungs, and your skin. And then be aware of the toxic inputs, which is what we eat, breathe, put on our skin, and then allow into our soul. So things like hatred or unforgiveness actually affect our physical body. When we are stressed, our digestion stops working. Well, what happens when your digestion is not at its peak? We have obstruction. How many women are constipated in America today? If you're not going 3 times a day, you are constipated. And that is very anti-Western medicine. And so I will go head to head with clinical research all day long, you know, about these things. But when you start to remove obstruction and you start to nourish with real living food, fruits, vegetables, nuts, sprouts, seeds, things that God created, things that grow out of the ground or fall from the tree. And I'm not vegan, but during our detox, I actually teach, we're going to stick with plants because certain, meat is mucus forming, and high protein diets are putrefying in the body. It creates obstruction. So we want to open elimination pathways. We want to bind toxins. I use a binder that binds 3,000 known toxins, including radioactive material, has herbs in it, and it just vacuums all that stuff out of your bloodstream. And then we want to move it out with herbs. But the starting point is just eat real food, eliminate processed foods, eliminate dairy, and eliminate refined sugars. And we do that just by ditch and enrich. I'm like, ditch the dirty 3 and enrich with real whole foods. And then we go through a progression where I teach fasting, I teach juicing, I teach colonics, coffee enemas. I take my coffee the other way. I don't drink coffee. These are real topics, though, that are they're helping women heal. I have a woman she was bedridden for 2 years. She didn't go outside. She didn't go shopping with her family. She didn't do any of the grocery stuff. She didn't make food. She was just so chronically fatigued and depressed. 2 weeks into eating a whole plant food diet and getting these obstructions out of her elimination pathways. And she went shopping after 2 years of being just in lockdown.
And that is her version of wealth. That is her current stage of wealth. She went shopping.
Yes, exactly. Well, and now she's building an amazing business. She's come alive again. She's excited about life again. I don't know if you've ever been in a health crisis, but I can speak firsthand that everything just kind of starts to grow dim and die off because fear of the future, why am I even being so sick and then coming back to life? It's man, there's nothing like being healthy and feeling like you can conquer the world, having the energy to do it.
Yes. Well, and isn't that why the entire world is captivated by the power of Jesus? When he comes and ministers, the stories that are told the most about him are the ones of healing, because in the human condition, we can see a leper's life after being healed. We can envision that and have joy for him within that and experience experience that, or the man who can now see, we can sit there and just cry with him and cheer with him because we can see what that kind of healing will bring for him and his family in the world, right?
Yes.
We are all just so intrigued by this idea of I love this self-healing, self-cleansing, what our bodies can do, and how that was brought by the Savior, and how we can experience a similar form of healing and cleansing now.
Yes. Amen. Yes. Preach it, sister. I love it.
Oh man, it's just get a couple of Jesus lovers in the room and this is where it goes, right? It's bound to happen. Bound to happen. I am so incredibly moved by, like, I'm so glad you went and slung the soaps. I'm just so glad that you did. Like, I know that maybe you didn't know this is where things would end, but I'm glad that you had enough vision to go and put on the stilettos and go sling the soaps because of what God has created you to be now, to bless so many people, including me. I am just so grateful.
Thank you. I feel grateful for you too. Thank you so much.
Well, in typical Unreasonable Autonomy fashion, and we will certainly have you over to my house once the studio's built, and we'll do even a deeper dive. And actually, I'm going to break the rule because I want to ask you a really selfish question before we go into rapid fire. Am I allowed to do that?
Yes, of course.
As someone who is 43 years old, so just a couple years younger than you, the talk of the town for women our age is perimenopause, menopause, hormone replacement therapy, all of those things. What is your message to women at that stage of life on the importance of what you teach in being able to live, and I mean that like very much in quotes and expressive hands, to really live past 40 with what you know about the body?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, the body's capability when it is free from obstruction, when it's like truly all the cells are functioning, everything's firing on all cylinders, we have a very different response to perimenopause and to menopause. And a lot of the symptoms that we're seeing are because of these imbalances in the body, and starting with alkalinity. I mean, you can start to regulate more just by being alkaline and getting a lot of these toxins out. And anything that is, we see bioidentical, the word bioidentical a lot in marketing. Anything that is man-made or made in a lab is going to store in the body as a toxin. A toxin is simply anything the body can't use. And so when we think about like hormone replacement therapy, there are natural herbs, like wild yam that you can massage onto your body, and it helps to balance things out. But when you get your body balanced with minerals and vitamins and nutrients and cleansed out, and parasites are gone, and heavy metals are gone, and mold and mycotoxins are gone, man, I'm not saying that there's not change, but there are herbs. Black cohosh is another herb that you can use to help balance. There's hope through nature that doesn't involve manipulation of the body, injections and a lot of these synthetic things that are only going to, and I am so grateful for intervention, medicine that is intervention from Western medicine. But I think there's just such an imbalance right now of narrative, right? So, and more people now than ever are looking for natural solutions, and they're finding a lot of weirdo natural solutions too that are just, so I like to really get just back to things that make sense, logical sense. For instance, there are things that are really polarizing in the health world because of the narrative and because of the history of medicine. But if you look at like borax, which is a cleaning supply, right out of the mountain, right? Comes right out of the earth. And its boron is, we can see all these people, parasites just literally like packing their bags and leaving because it starts to produce alkalinity in the body. And if you ingest it correctly, but we're told not to ingest that stuff. So now it's like, man, you want to put on the conspiracy theory hat. Yep. There are things that are really beneficial that the earth, and then obviously like lobelia is an herb, comes from, it's the native term for it is Indian tobacco. And so lobelia is an herb that is like the shepherd herb. So it knows what to do when it goes in your body. And I've seen women who have had chronic heart palpitations and perimenopause and just, when you start getting I don't know if you've had heart palpitations or anything like that, and lobelia just comes in and it helps to regulate. And so there's natural things that help to regulate the body. And alkalinity is like the very first principal thing.
Incredible. And just the depth in which you know your craft is so impressive, right? And I remember Richie Norton, he's a friend of mine, told me that the key element in our day and age, like the one trait you want to sharpen is discernment. Mm-hmm. And I love so much talking with you that you have explored the woo-woo, you have, a respect for Western medicine, and you have used discernment.
Yeah.
That's really the key ingredient, so that we aren't just swifted off again, that we are very, very engaged with our discernment on the decisions that we are making and who we trust. And so I just deeply respect the effort that you have put in. It is not going unnoticed. Bravo to you. Bravo. Okay. So I broke all the rules before I asked you the rapid fire questions, because I just selfishly was like, I am 43 and I want to know what she thinks about this. So I guess it's the perk of having a podcast, right? So just in typical Unreasonable Autonomy fashion, I'm going to ask you 2 rapid fire questions. We will wrap up this interview and we will get it out to the world, because so many people, both men and women, need this message from you. So are you ready?
Yes.
Beautiful. So what is one book that every single entrepreneur should read?
Who, Not How. 10X is better than 2X. Probably those 2. You gave me just between those 2.
You can break the rules. We broke them already. We're good. All right. And the second and final question is a little bit near and dear to the heart. When you think about the end of your life, what do you hope your kids say about you? And what do you hope Nathan says about you?
Oh, wow. Man, you're going to make me cry again.
Okay.
I hope that they know that they are loved and that I gave my all, that I didn't hold anything back.
You're on your way.
Thank you.
And now you think about Nathan. Is there anything you hope he would say as your husband?
That I was a delightful wife.
I love that. I bet if I interviewed him, he would say you were. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Jaime, for being here and sharing your soul and sharing your stories and sharing all of the nitty-gritty on just how we can be people who are well and alive and true. And I can't express the feeling in my soul from sitting across from you. You clearly practice what you preach. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, if this is what it feels like to be someone who is alive and the impact it can have across the screen, that is a worthwhile endeavor. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Sarah. It was so wonderful. I just love you, and I haven't even met you yet.
I love it. We'll have you in the studio soon. Thanks again to the amazing Jaime Cross.
Thank you for listening to the Unreasonable Autonomy podcast. If you loved this episode, my guests and I would love to hear about it. Go to the show notes to reach out and let me know what resonated with you or what topics or guests you want to hear in the future. I am here to create for you. Look, I deeply admire your commitment to pushing boundaries and going after an unreasonable life. Keep dreaming big, taking bold steps, and expecting the unreasonable. For more, go to the show notes to dive deeper into the conversations that will keep you going. Thanks for being here.